Hey there, welcome back. Let's continue where we left in the previous episode. Alright, in the previous episode, we have added these Lambda handlers. Let's try to add some code inside these handlers. Right. First, we are going to create one model here. That is going to be our payment method model. Right. So let's try to add some code here. Perfect. So our payment method model is ready. Right. So let's go to repository. Here in the seller repository, let's try to add all the required methods, which is going to handle our data operations for our seller repository. All right, so these are the necessary functions in the repository side. It's required to complete the join seller program, right? First of all, we will be check like if that user is already enrolled or not, because it doesn't make sense if already enrolled and again just to try to enroll the same user, it doesn't make sense, right? So that this function is going to take care of like validation or maybe checking that specific enrollment. And once this is once user try to enroll, then certainly on the time of the user sign up, we have not collected the username or user first name or last name, right? In that case, we need the user first name and last name, and along with the address also. Because why address is needed? Because while we are selling a kind of product, then certainly the verification or some kind of the legal documents going to be required in the business use case, right? In that case, we need to capture the address also. So while you are joining the program, then certainly we will be capturing all those things along with your first name, last name, phone number, and address as well as. In the join seller program, it's a kind of combination of your username, address, and your bank account. So that's why while we are joining the program, then we're going to update all these things in a separate table also, because your user profile is going to be updated, then address is going to be updated, then we are going to create our payment method. In the get payment methods, it's going to return like numbers of the payment method you have created for your account. How many numbers you have added, it depends exactly. But in our case, first of all, we are going to add at least one default payment method. And after that, you can update the payment method at any time. All right, so these are the things we are going to handle it. So let's try to add some code quickly inside all these functions. First of all, let's pick it up this one, this check enroll program. There's not much more inputs is going to be needed, only the user ID is needed. Let's try to add some code quickly. I'm gonna add all this code quickly, and then I'll just get back to you to make you understand. So here in this check enroll program, we have just created a very simple query where we are trying to find out the user type from the users, where user ID equal to provided user ID, and user type will be seller, right? If that the user type already seller, then just try to return true. Then it's gonna say like, hey, you have already enrolled. So why you are trying to enroll once again? You can just go ahead and sell your product. And if it doesn't, then it will return false, where the user can join the seller program. So that is what we are doing right here. Here in the update profile, we are trying to update user first name and last name, and along with the phone number. Because while we have collected the informations for our sign up, if you go to user sign up, then we have not collected that one. What are the things we are collecting? We are email and password and phone number. These are the three parameters we are just collecting here, right? So in the repository, go to repository once again, seller repository. Yeah, so these are first name and last name we have not collected. Additionally, why we are just collecting phone number, maybe you wish to update your phone number for the seller in different phone number, so that's why you can use that one, right? In the update profile, we are accepting multiple parameters, right? While you have a multiple parameters input in the function, then it's always the kind of good way to keep it inside a kind of object, okay? Then you will never misplace your variables or the places of that specific input, right? Let's try to add some code here in update profile as well as quickly. Right, this is we need to handle the user import path, because maybe in one episode I'm going to cover how we can configure the TS config. There's some advanced path configuration and the compilation configuration we can do, right? That is we are going to cover in a kind of separate episode. So as of now, just going to use like this way. So make sure like double dot, then you are reaching to our models directory, then our user model here, something like this. Now our update profile is ready. Update profile is taking simply these are the input, and it is updating the users, first name, last name, and phone number, and user type, as well as where user ID will be this specific user ID, right? And once that the user is updated, then we are returning the whole user model from here, right? Which is called returning all. We're doing here. So maybe you can return the specific fields. That's a kind of best practice ever, but still here we are just returning all. Right, so here in update address, let's try to add some code. Updating the address, we need to have the address DTO, right? Which is we have created here somewhere inside the DTO, go to address input. So these are the things exactly it's needed, right? Let's try to grab all these things. And go to repository. Here, instead of input, we are going to add the address input. Address input DTO. Okay. Now, but in the update address exactly, it's needed our user ID as well as. So, which is already been added here, ID as a number. Maybe we can take advantage of this one, or if that specific ID doesn't exist, as an example, this is not exist, right? Then still what we can do, we can add like this, right? And user ID can be number, something like this. So that means in the input object, we'll be having the address input along with the user ID as well as. Cool. Now let's try to add some code quickly, and once this is done, then I'll get back to you. In the update address function, we are capturing the inputs from our user, which is called address input, along with our user ID. And first, we are trying to figure out whether this addresses exist or not. If it is exist, simply just update the address, right? Otherwise, if it doesn't exist, right, then try to insert that specific address. That's why we are writing a kind of query, which is called, by default, it's a query string going to be inserted into address line 1, 2, city, post, and country and user ID. And these are the same values, right? All right, because in both the cases, if it is going to be insert or if it is going to be update, the values will be the same, right? That's why this specific query we are executing only once. It doesn't matter whether it is insert or update, it will going to execute once, right? So this is our update address function, right? Let's try to close it. And now the second part is let's create a payment method. So here, to creating the payment method, we should have to capture some kind of inputs from the user as well as, right? So because we don't have a DTO for our payment method input, let's try to create one DTO file here. Here in the seller program input DTO file, we have created two different type of the input that is called payment method input and our seller program input, right? So while we are joining the seller program, then this payment method input also going to be needed, right? So that means the seller program input will be having the bank account number, SWIFT code, and payment type, as well as the first name, last name, phone number, along with the address input. Why we are keeping this the payment method input separate? Because at any time while you are going to edit your bank account number or maybe payment method, then this is going to be necessary, right? Then again, we need to dig into our seller program input if we are keeping it together. That's why we're keeping it such a way. Then we are extending all these things from the payment method input to here, right? That's cool. Now let's go ahead and here in the seller repository, let's try to add some code in the create payment method. Here in the create payment method function, we have deconstructed all these required parameters, excluding the address, because address doesn't make sense here for creating the payment method, right? Only the bank account number, SWIFT code, payment type, and user ID is going to be needed, right? And here we are writing very simple query to insert the data into the payment methods: bank account number, SWIFT code, payment type, and user ID. Where bank account number we are accepting as a kind of string from the front end, so we need to cast it to number, right? And this is the SWIFT code and the payment type and user ID, right? And end of the day, like we're just like executing this specific query and try to finding out if it is inserted or not. If it is inserted, then it will give you true or it's false, right? Now let's go to get payment methods. It's a very simple query where we will try to find out all the payment methods belongs to the user, right? So let's try to add this specific code very quickly. Maybe we can take out this one, copy, and here, then we can say like select from payment methods. Where do I right? This is just right here. Perfect. But what we need to do, we need to provide the return as a kind of payment method model, right? So which is already we need to check it out whether we have created this one or not. Yes, we have created this payment method model, right? So this is the way we need to find it out. Make sure these are the keys exactly it's matching with our database or not. So go to migration and find out this last migration file. That is, yes, this one. Let's try to figure out. This is SWIFT code is exist, payment type is exist, user ID also exist, created at this one, and bank account number as well as. Okay, not bank account number, this is bank account, right? So this is we need to rectify. Let's go back again to the code. In the model, payment model, this is going to be bank account only, because then only you will get properly casted data here, right? Otherwise that specific field will be missed, right? So this model data and the migration, like the SQL data, has to be matched. Now go here inside the seller repository where have been used that one. This model do we use somewhere? No, we have not used that yet. So that's a good sign. So return will be result result dot rows 0 as payment method model, right? Otherwise we will return false, right? Or maybe what we can do, maybe we can flip side, we can use like if less than 0, then we can throw new error by saying like does not. Okay. Here in the get payment methods, we are just to try to find out the available payment method per users, right, by user ID. And if it is there, then just return the first row, because we are maintaining only one payment method per while. Maybe in future we can maintain the multiple, right? And if it doesn't exist, then it will return this error, payment methods doesn't exist, right? Now let's add some code in the update payment method as well, as so our repository class will be completely covered then. So here update payment method will be pretty much similar, just like our create payment method. So what we can do, let's try to accept the parameters. Here will be payment method input, method input, and along with our payment ID. That is we have already added here. Once we are creating this payment method, that is automatically going to be generate a kind of payment ID. That is here, you can see in this table, this one, right? And now this payment ID will be kind of number, right? User ID also going to be needed. ID number, right? So let's try to bank account number and zip code, payment type, payment ID, payment ID, and user ID. Right, so here in the update payment method, we have deconstructed all these required parameters, right? And you can see this is a very simple the SQL query where we are updating the payment methods, right? The bank account and Swift code and payment type is this one, and where we are comparing ID equal to this one. You might have thinking like this payment ID is enough for updating this specific table, while why this user ID is necessary. Why exactly it is necessary? Because if you are not providing this one, then anybody can perform this update payment methods, right? And if you are providing this user ID, then only that the owner of that specific payment method can be able to update this one. And this user ID, it will be captured from our signature. So our seller repository is ready to use. Let's go ahead here in the seller service. We are going to add some code in these Lambda functions in order to work with the joint seller program, right? But before that, let's go to the user service. Here, I'm going to close everything from here, close all, and the user service from, maybe let's go to user handler so we can get a kind of clear understanding. So here, once you're going to log in, click on the user login, then after successful login, it is generating the token, right? And this data is a kind of user model, right? So go to Pine account, and you can see here we are not returning anything, just like user is a buyer or seller, right? That is we need to return. The way we have inserted these things, can you see this user type, right? This user type, we need to return it here. So right after this expiry, maybe we can return it, user type. Now this user type will be available to our user model. So let's go to user model, and you can see this user type and this field doesn't exist. So this field exactly has to be identical, just like our SQL file. If you go to the initial one, you can see this is the SQL field, right? So this has to be matched. Then only we can get the proper, whether it is buyer or seller. Try to save it. Now from our user service, user handler, login, and get token, we will be having proper data. This user type doesn't exist, provided user type. This is going to be user type. Right now our token will be generated along with the user type. Fine. All right, so now our user login is returning the security token right after the successful login, but our sign up is not, right? So we need to handle that. So let's go to create user. You can see it is giving the error. Let's try to replace with the user underscore type. Now here, right after successful sign up, we need to encrypt the token and need to send it back just like our user login does, right? So let's try to do that. So here, let's copy these things from here and let's add all these things right after this line number 50, and we're going to remove this one. Okay. Now this is perfectly fine, but while we are having successful response, right? Then we need to add all these things to our front-end application as well as, right? Once it successfully sign up, right? Then we should have to receive the user profile data and some of the data related to buyer or seller, because that's going to be useful for our seller dashboard, right? So let's try to optimize a little bit the response, right? So first of all, token will be perfectly fine. Let's try to format this way. And second thing, we need the email as well as, right? This is going to be data.email, and first name are going to be needed because we are going to display as a guest while you are signing up or maybe login. At the time, data.first name, data.last name, and phone will be data.phone. And user type, this is extremely necessary, data.user type, and ID also going to be needed to perform some operations. Let's provide the ID as well as data.id, user ID, right? Perfect. So now we are returning proper response. Let's grab these things from here as well as and add these things to user login also, because both the response has to be identical, right? So let's try to add here. But in this case, yeah, data is correct, right? Token, yeah, perfect. So now our user service is perfectly fine. We are going to generate this specific token where we will be having the user type also. Let's we have a couple of errors because we have changed the user type. That's why it is saying like this. So let's try to change this to user underscore type. Right, so any errors? Yeah. Make sure if you are changing anything in the model level, then you need to refactor everywhere wherever exactly it is involved, right? So now we have verified the security token is giving us the correct user type, right? Which is going to help us to validate the user type is the buyer or seller, right? In the next episode, we are going to add some code in the seller service where we are going to cover all these Lambda functions in order to complete this the seller program. All right, then see you in a bit.